Welcome back to Reasoned Refrain, where it is my goal for you to know what you believe and why you believe it, and to preach the gospel of resurrection by grace alone, through faith alone, over and over again. I am your host, Stephen Curto. Please feel free to talk back to the show by emailing Stephen@reasonedrefrain.com. That's Stephen, Stephen, the correct spelling, at reasonedrefrain.com. Drink of the day is actually a beer. A Paulaner Munchen Salvator double Bock. My father-in-law brought me a couple of bottles of this, and it's quite nice. It's a little hoppier than I would normally like, but not bad. If you find it, I would recommend picking one up. Where have you been? Where on earth have you been? Well, I could spend time telling you about all of that, but that would leave less time for the show. Suffice it to say, I got married and I got distracted. Go figure. Let's go ahead and get into the show by beginning things with the meat segment.
The meat segment.
Yes, we eat something's flesh. I want meat!
One of the things that I missed in my time away speaking to you about was Easter. And so I would like to take a good chunk of the meat segment today to just reflect on Easter. I, particularly, having just gotten married, have been thinking a lot about what am I going to do with my future family concerning all of the holidays, but Easter in particular is my favorite holiday. I think that it should be the most important holiday for all Christians. It should be every Christian's favorite holiday because it is the central claim of Christianity. But I guess I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. If we're going to talk about a holiday, we have to first think of what are holidays. Holidays, the word holiday comes from an Old English word, holiday. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but holy day is what the etymological breakdown of the word means. And holy comes from a Proto-Germanic word that means preserved whole or uninjured. Yes, the word holy does come from the same word as the word whole, as in W-H-O-L-E. Originally, they meant the same thing. But the concept of something being preserved whole or uninjured suggests that how it got kind of used in clerical or religious contexts is we were trying to preserve or keep whole some particular day that got set aside, some particular thing that we want to set aside, and not let it get marred or destroyed. That's why we celebrate a holiday. So wrapped up in the very word holiday is the concept of tradition and doing something that you would always do on this day, which I find interesting. Generally everybody does celebrate holidays according to some sort of traditions. They practice some sort of traditions, and the Easter's no different in that sense. I routinely get in the discussion with one of my friends about holidays in general, and I always joke because we work together and we're always talking about different holidays where we get time off from work, and I'm like, oh, these are just silly made up holidays. They don't mean anything. They ask if I want time off to celebrate fill in the blank President's Day is one of the worst in my opinion. Labor Day is another one that I absolutely hate. Like, we're gonna set time off to celebrate taking time off. Sounds like a Ponzi scheme to me. But in this case, This holiday is not just a silly made-up one. At least it's not made up by man. This holiday, Easter, was made up by God. It was established, ordained, that we should remember this event that took place. Every year, we remember a particular thing. In this case, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That time that the God-man took on flesh, died, was buried, and then rose again from the grave by the power of the Spirit. That's a pretty monumental, earth-shattering, life-changing thing. So yeah, let's make it a holy day. Let's preserve it whole and set it apart, and think of how we should celebrate and remember. I hope that I don't have to convince you that Easter should be everyone's favorite holiday. And I find it strange that Easter is not every Christian's favorite holiday. I teach hermeneutics to 7th graders, and I asked them what their favorite holidays were, and Easter was not on anybody's list. Most often I heard was Christmas. Christmas, Thanksgiving. I heard 4th of July once. And I was trying to think through why, particularly Christmas. So the two major Christian holidays are Christmas and Easter. So much so that we have a name for people who only come to church on Christmas and Easter. We call them Creasters, at least. That's what my family called them. Creasters are a common occurrence. These are our two holidays in Christianity. But Christmas gets like a happier place in everyone's heart, particularly among the young. But I would think, broadly speaking, you ask the average Christian which holiday they prefer celebrating, and it's Christmas. They have more fond memories associated with Christmas. They do more things associated with Christmas. Big one, they spend more money at Christmas. Why is this? Why does Easter usually rank lower than Christmas for most Christians? And I started trying to think about this and consider the question why, and I came up with a few reasons I think probably are part of the reason, at the very least. One, we don't know why we do the things we do at Easter. Like all of the cultural sign traditions, the things that you associate with Easter, whereas Christmas you associate trees, presents, a manger, a star, angels singing up on high, the caroling, singing particular praises to God. The things that we associate with Easter, eggs, bunnies, chocolate, pollen, we don't really get how they connect. Nobody really knows where any of these traditions came from. You do a quick Google search, you'll find 30 different answers for why eggs are associated with Easter. And the closest anybody can really get comes from kind of Dutch thing, or maybe there was a Greek tradition about a red egg in early Christendom that was like about the resurrection or something or other. Maybe it's talking about new life and how like eggs represent life because things get born from eggs, which is why we also talk about bunnies, because they reproduce a lot, and so I guess life, spring, like there isn't a really clear through line for our images and our pictures or symbols that we use and celebrate at Easter. They don't signify anything to us. That's one reason I think maybe Easter ranks lower, is this the marketing basically for Easter got blown early on. Another possible reason why Easter ranks lower than Christmas is timing. Since Christmas is at the end of the year, I think really this is a perfect example of do you serve God or money? At the end of the year, the budget has been completed, and you know exactly how many dollars you have left over, and you know that you have room to flex up in your spending, and you spend more at the end of the year than you're willing to spend in April. Perhaps that's part of it. And so we spend more, and thus we create more memories from what we spend. And what do you know? When you spend money, you're communicating what you value. And if you spend more money on Christmas than you do on Easter, you're communicating that you value Christmas more than you value Easter. That's all money is an expression of value. It's a common language by which we express value. I think this is worth X units. We'll call them dollars. We also are able to take off more time from work at the end of the year. And people generally give us more time off of work at the end of the year because we know the fiscal year runs a certain period. We know people are going to be taking time off and people are going to be traveling. It's colder, and so it forces us indoors and it just kind of creates this more intimate atmosphere that creates memories and kind of makes those fond things stir up in us of closeness and togetherness that Easter, since it's all like outside stuff, we don't do. These are all just things that are batting around in my head. There is even possibly a good argument that we shouldn't make a big deal about it. Like Easter should rank lower because we should be thinking about the resurrection every week, right? Why are you making such a big deal about this thing once a year? You should be making a big deal every single second of your life because it is incredible that the resurrection of Christ procures for you your own resurrection by grace alone through faith alone. I mean, that's huge. But I wonder if it's possible that the reason Easter isn't as high on our lists is because we don't really believe what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15 as fully as we claim to. Do I really believe that without the resurrection, my faith is futile? Do I really believe that if Christ didn't raise from the dead, I am, of all people, most to be pitied? Think of the person in the world that you pity the most. Think of someone starving in a third world country, hasn't had a bath in a week, lops off their hand so as to look more pitiful as they beg, hasn't eaten in the last 3 days, skin and bones, hair falling out, no teeth. We pity that person, absolutely. You are to be pitied more, Christian, if Christ did not raise from the dead. That's what Paul says. Do we really believe that? I think that if we did, as firmly as we should, Easter would be so high on our list. It would be no contest. What's your favorite holiday? Easter. Of course, Easter. It is the day when everything that is wrong with the world got made right, or at least the down payment of what would fix everything that is wrong with the world was given on this day. No contest. Easter. And then I started thinking, how do we celebrate Easter? You know, as I considered some of the traditions, you know, I've already mentioned eggs, bunnies. Pretty much everything that we do at Easter revolves around that. I went ahead and Googled a few major Easter traditions that people tend to keep. Aside from go to church and read the Easter story, which I think most people do, post on your Facebook, "He is risen," and hope that somebody says he is risen indeed. Or if you're really pretentious like me, you post it in Greek and you hope that somebody responds in Greek, which they did. Yeah, I'm that guy. I own it. That's fine. But as far as like the stuff that we do, things that we say we're celebrating Easter, Easter egg hunts, baskets of gifts and candy from the mystical Easter bunny, who everyone kind of agrees is the worst of all of the fictional characters, right? It's not a whole lot. Like Father Time even ranks higher than the Easter bunny, I think, for most people, just because it's a rabbit. Like maybe I'm off. Dyeing Easter eggs, and coloring the Easter eggs with vinegar and food coloring, and eating ham, eating lamb, eating deviled eggs, eating carrots, eating carrot cake. I mean, there's the Easter egg roll competition, which the White House hosts every year, and still to this day, for some reason, hosts. Send Easter cards. Maybe you start your spring cleaning. These things that we do, I think, like I said earlier, don't really connect to the meaning of Easter that well. My wife says that something that they did growing up was resurrection eggs, where you had a bunch of plastic eggs inside a carton, and each egg contained some little item that was a component of the story of the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ. Which, that's decent, right? That's something to do with the kids that actually ties in all of these cultural symbols of Easter with the meaning of Easter. But part of me thinks maybe we need to just try and change all of the PR. We just need to relaunch the brand. Let's ditch the eggs. Let's ditch the bunnies. Let's stop trying to fix the current cultural symbols and create our own new ones. Like, let's apply some ingenuity and creativity to the celebration of Easter. I would love to see Christians with their families setting aside time ahead of Easter to build the same anticipation that they build around Christmas. You know, Christmas, you got the tree up for weeks at least. Usually you got presents under it. You decorate your house. Most women that I know spend multiple days getting out all of the, quote, Christmas decorations and completely changing the topography of their houses in order to highlight the holiday that is coming up. We don't do that for Easter. I want to find some practical ways to move Easter up in the list, because when I talk to like I said, particularly young people, young Christians, they don't have a clear understanding of just how important the resurrection is. And I think one very practical way that we can stoke in these people an understanding of the resurrection and just how important it is to treat it that way. Treat the day when we remember it as the most important day of the year. Orient your life around it the same way you do Christmas. Give it that kind of attention. Let's see what happens as a result. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which I guess it'll come up in 3 favorite news stories. So let's go ahead and move on to 3 favorite news stories, or more accurately, the whole big mess of news stories I missed from the last however long it's been.
It's my favorite.
More or less, or really a lot more.
News stories from the last week.
I mean, sort of. So much has happened. Some really big things that I'm probably not going to talk about at all. The war in Ukraine. I don't know foreign policy. I'm guessing that probably sinners are out there sinning, and sinners in power are out there sinning in power. That's about the extent of my analysis on the war in Ukraine. Should we get involved? My general answer is always no. There's, what's some of the bit? Okay, inflation. 8.5% most recently. Don't you love that building back better meant building higher numbers of inflation, evidently. The attempt to blame it on Putin. You've heard Putin's price hike. This is Putin's price hike. Putin's price hike. You've really heard the corporate media's, I realize media is already plural, try and shove that line down your throats. I'm surprised that nobody has just come back with, okay, let's go ahead and accept the lie. Let's play on your premise that this is all Putin hiking our prices. You're saying that President Biden is so weak and ineffective that he he's unable to combat the actions of a foreign dictator changing the prices in our sovereign nation. Like, that's the tact you're going to go with is, well, we can't do anything because some other foreign leader is like hiking our prices. It's like, oh, so you're just saying you're really bad at this. Even according to your own false narrative, which is a total lie because, it's not Putin's price hike, it's Biden's price hike, but I digress. Ketanji Jackson became a Supreme Court judge, and I'm sure you already heard this, but I have to play it. This is Marsha Blackburn's cross-examination during her confirmation hearings when Ketanji Brown Jackson was asked a particular question which she claimed she couldn't answer, and the reason she couldn't answer it is that she's not a biologist. Take a listen.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of the
Not in this context, I'm not a biologist. Also, something that didn't get as much play about this particular little clip is that I realize, okay, everybody who's always pointing out how hypocritical I am, I know I'm a hypocrite. I know, okay? Greg, you don't have to take every opportunity. I know you don't take every opportunity, but I know that I do this too. But it still bugs the heck out of me when I hear another person do it. The condescending way that she was like, no. Can you provide a definition of the word woman? No. Listen to it again.
can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No.
Yeah.
No. Like, why would you ask such a ridiculous question? Are you crazy? It's not like this is something that every human being has known the answer to for all of human history. So that was fun. She's on the Supreme Court now. Go figure. Elon is trying to buy Tesla. That's exciting. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. Tax day happened, and taxation is still theft. And I still cannot believe that people rejoice at the concept of a tax return, which is just money that was stolen from you. Literally, the government stuck its grubby little hands into your paycheck before you ever got to see it, stole money from you without, asking, without your permission, just, forcibly took your money and then said, oh, I guess we stole a little too much. Here's a little bit back. If a mugger comes up, steals your wallet and phone and keys, and then hotwires your car, drives off, but then he comes back and goes, your house key's on here. You might as well have your keys back so you can get into your house. Do you rejoice and jump around skipping oh, yay, he gave me my keys back? No, you crazy people. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. So much of my life is just Zoolander. I'm just Mugatu, sitting here going, it's the same face. It's taxation. It's theft. It's the same thing. So anyway, the government gave back some of the money they stole. So, I guess rejoice. Don't try and fix the theft. Just rejoice at the return. Well, we'll get to the stories that I wanted to get to, which are, first of all, there was a screenshot that a nurse took of a training that she underwent. This was an ICU nurse undergoing some sort of training. I don't know much of the context here. I do know that it was widely reported and it is verified. And it's just a screenshot of one question with a true or false answer. And then there's a little pop-up menu that says whether or not you got the answer correct or not. And so it's very obvious that this nurse has already clicked an answer and the pop-up menu has popped up to tell her if she's correct or incorrect. Here's the question on this training, or the statement that you say is true or false. Obesity is a result of overeating and not exercising. The nurse has selected true. The pop-up has said incorrect. You did not select the correct response. Obesity is a result of overeating and not exercising. Yeah, that's true. That's kind of like health class 101. That's like second grade level health. Like, hey kids, don't eat a whole bunch and never exercise, otherwise you'll get super fat. They probably say it in nicer, more politically correct terms, but yeah, obesity, you get that way from eating, and eating a lot. And I know I struggle with my weight. I work really hard to not be really fat. I'm only a little bit fat by working really hard. This isn't like a fat shaming thing or like I can't understand or relate. It's like, do we accept basic reality anymore? And the answer, of course, is no. As evidenced by the other big news story that happened this week that, not this week, obviously, but since the last time I turned on the microphone, which just makes me want to blow my brains out. The most recent outrage over transgenderism, which some of us have been complaining about this for a while, but it's Bruce Willis and Die Hard, welcome to the party, pals. Leah Thomas, or William Thomas, as I will call him, because he is a him, number one in the country or something or other, won some sort of a swimming competition. William Thomas is a guy who's pretending he's a girl so that he can swim competitively against other girls, and the NCAA is like, cool. And a whole bunch of stuff has gone on with William and his attempt to completely obliterate women's sports. But the very fact that we are in the worst timeline, and William Thomas was awarded the number one spot by the NCAA, and the world is collectively trying to say, yeah, well, it's complicated. You're treating this. I was having this conversation at work the other day in the break room, and somebody said, you treat this as so black and white. It's kind of black and white. It's kind of what's great about the dichotomy of male and female, the biological distinction, and might I add, God-made distinction of male and female, is that it's really black and white. You're male or you're female. And there are very, very, very few actual exceptions to this rule who don't fit neatly into one category or the other. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a man who wants to be a woman. He can't. That's the reality. Them's the breaks. You can't be a woman if you're a man, and you can't be a man if you're a woman. And I talk with Christians. I did a podcast on what's it called? Theology on Tap, Theology on Air, where I was debating basically the bulk of the discussion was around whether or not Christians should use the chosen pronouns of transgender people. It's like, okay, what do you mean by transgender? There's no such thing. There's guys who believe they're girls, and there's girls who believe they're guys. Is that what you're talking about? There's guys who want me to refer to them as girls, and I won't. Is that what you're talking about? And Christian, should you? No. No, this is a very basic black and white chapter 1 kind of an issue. He created them male and female. And you can't even get around it well, that was the Old Testament God. You can't even get around it by well, that's something Paul said. It's not like Jesus said it. Jesus said, in the beginning, he created them male and female. Those are your two options. He also accepted the possible category of eunuch, meaning somebody who can't fulfill all of the duties of a man. But you've got two choices. There is a binary here. It's male or it's female, and that's what God created. the absolute lunacy, the unbelievable delusion that our society wants to collectively indulge. That a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. That someone who sits on the Supreme Court can in one breath talk about how a woman has certain rights, and then the next breath says, well, but I can't define a woman. I'm not a biologist, which at least, she's appealing to biology for her definition. So, maybe she's just maybe she's just lying. Maybe, I know, maybe everyone's just lying. 9/11. It's just, it's hard to believe. Peak stupid, much like peak oil, just does not exist. We are living in the darkest timeline. One last news story. One that probably didn't get a lot of play. Something that you might not have heard about or read about. I'm reading from MSN.com. Phoenix, Arizona. Thousands of adults and children baptized by a Phoenix priest will have to undergo the religious rite a second time after the church declared them invalid. The reason? The priest used the phrase, "We baptize you," instead of, "I baptize you," during the sacrament. The baptisms were performed by Father Andres Arango of St. Gregory Parish. Bishop Thomas Olmsted wrote in a January 14th letter to the Diocese of Phoenix. The baptisms happened over about 2 decades of service in Brazil, the Diocese of San Diego and the Diocese of Phoenix Catholic News Agency reported. Basically, what this priest was performing Roman Catholic baptisms and saying the phrase, "We baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit," instead of the words, "I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." There's the Westminster Confession of Faith words something really well, so I want to pull it up real quick. But I found this almost comical, and most people found this almost comical, that the baptisms were considered null and void because of one word difference, because he made it plural instead of singular. And part of me, as the theology nerd in me, loves the attention to detail, right? I think words really matter. You've got to choose your words carefully. And "we baptize" is different than "I baptize." I think it's pretty obvious this priest wasn't thinking very carefully or clearly or particularly, and he was just like, "We," as in we, the church, "we baptize you." But according to Roman Catholic theology, the priest is acting as a mediator for God. He is acting as Christ on earth in this moment, and he is wiping away your original sin, according to Roman Catholic theology. He is at that moment returning you to a state of innocency where you can freely choose to obey God or to sin. And you might take upon yourself another sin nature, but you would do so by choice as opposed to inheriting it from your father Adam. But the Westminster Confession of Faith, I think, does a really good job of wording something that would have just solved this whole issue if the Roman Catholics believed it. It's in chapter 28, paragraph 6. The efficacy of baptism is not tied to that moment of time wherein it is administered, yet notwithstanding by the right use of this ordinance, the grace promised is not only offered, but really exhibited and conferred by the Holy Ghost to such as whether of age or infants, I'm not going to deal with that today, as that grace belongeth unto, according to the counsel of God's own will in his appointed time. Additionally, there is another portion of the previous chapter, chapter 27, paragraph 3, the grace which is exhibited in or by the sacraments, baptism being one of them, rightly used, is not conferred by any power in them, neither doth the efficacy of a sacrament depend upon the piety or intention of him that doth administer it, but upon the work of the Spirit and the word of institution, which contains, together with a precept, authorizing the use thereof, a promise of benefit to worthy receivers. Basically, theology matters is where this all goes. This Roman Catholic priest made an honest mistake for 2 decades, and according to bad Roman Catholic theology, a whole lot of people were in peril because of his poor word choice. Praise God that he does not rely on the perfections of man's speech to bring about his mercy, but instead he relies upon his own grace. Amen. Let's go ahead and take a jaunt through Old Man Joe.
And I see like an old man.
The big difference between mostly dead and all dead. Please open his mouth.
Old Man Joe, what you gonna tell me? Old Man Joe, what you gonna say?
There's one quick little segment or video, audio clip you should hear, which was from Easter. Biden, part of me feels a little guilty having the Old Man Joe segment anymore, because it's... But not so guilty that I'm going to stop. Because he is choosing, and the people he's committed himself to are choosing to continue to put him into these situations. He finishes this Easter speech, and he needs to wave to the crowd. Like, it's a very clear moment where it was planned that everybody was going to wave, and he doesn't. And you can hear Jill, his abuser. Is it wrong to say that? I mean, I think we are in the realm of where we can just say this is elder abuse, and Jill Biden is the one who is instigating a lot of it. She's the one who keeps propping him up. And maybe that's too strong of language. Either way, he forgets to wave, and you hear Jill saying, "Wave, wave." Here, take a listen.
Welcome to the South Lawn. Thank you, and happy Easter. All right.
Wait.
Did you hear that? Wave, wave. She says it twice. I'll play it again. You can listen for it. It's a hot mic moment, right?
Happy Easter. All right.
Wait.
He starts to turn around to walk back inside. All right, I'm done. I can go sleep now, right? Wave, wave. You need to get the photo up because you're a politician. You used to know how to do this, Joe. I think it's time that we invoke the 25th Amendment, right? Like we can't let this go on. We've got to move on. We got to get him out of office. Like, just for his own sake, stop propping him up, and go ahead and let's let. Oh, wait a second. If that happens, then Kamala's president. And I suppose then she's gonna have to say words, which seems to be Joe's problem. I'm gonna play for you a few clips. These are clips that have been collected over the last... Well, they've all occurred... I think they've all occurred since my last episode. Maybe one of them is from before then. See if you can spot the common theme that connects all of these various sound bites. All right? Let's go ahead and take a listen.
It was great. And apparently, I've never been on live television before, but apparently sometimes I don't watch I don't watch the news because I'm a kid, and apparently Grandpa just gives me a remote after we watch the Powerball.
We also recognize, just as it has been in the United States for Jamaica, one of the issues that has been presented as an issue that is economic in the way of its impact has been the pandemic. So to that end, we are announcing today also that we will assist Jamaica in COVID recovery by assisting in terms of the recovery efforts in Jamaica that have been essential to, I believe, what is necessary to strengthen not only the issue of public health, but also the economy.
Anyway, I started working on what I'm going to say for the ceremony. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
Now, listen, this is just a first draft, so... We are gathered here today on this joyous occasion to celebrate the special love that Monica and Chandler share. Huh? Right. It is a love based on giving and receiving, as well as having and sharing. And the love that they give and have is shared and received. And through this having and giving and sharing and receiving, we too can share and love and have and receive.
The governor and we were all doing a tour of the library here and talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
My philosophy is basically this, and this is something that I live by, and I always have, and I always will. Don't ever, for any reason, do anything to anyone, for any reason, ever, no matter what, no matter where or who you are with, or where you are going, or where you've been, ever, for any reason whatsoever.
At what point does the administration say, you know what, this strategy isn't working, we're going to change strategies? 6 former administration officials last week wrote that open letter urging the administration to change course, to change strategy. Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree that there are things and tools that are available to us to slow this thing down.
Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
And when folks vote, they order what they want, and in this case, they got what they asked for. I went off script a little bit.
Yeah, maybe impeaching Joe's not the best idea. This has been Old Man Joe.
And I see like an old man.
The big difference between mostly dead and all dead. Please open his mouth.
Old Man Joe, what you gonna tell me? Old Man Joe, what you gonna say?
In a COVID minute, everything can change. In a COVID minute, things can get a little strange. In a COVID minute.
Well, also in the interim, a COVID minute occurred. When I left on my honeymoon, I had to wear a mask in the Uber and in the airport and on the airplane, and then I had to get a COVID test done at the resort in Mexico before I could come back and enter the United States to show that I was clear and I wasn't going to spread the disease. And just this week, surprise, surprise, the poll numbers finally caught up to him, and actually what really happened is a judge said, hey, this is unconstitutional. Again, I just need to get the clip of Bruce Willis saying, "Welcome to the party, pal." Ugh. You literally can go back and listen to the recordings. I have been saying that for 2.5 years at this point. Can you believe 2.5 years? Has it really been that long? Yeah, what, January, February of 2020 was when all of this started? I guess it's more like just 2 years. It's I don't know exactly what the right word is. The utter collapse of civilized society is marked by our reaction to that disease. And it's what convinced me that peak stupid, much like peak oil, does not exist. Have I explained that on the show? Right? We remember peak oil, right? All of my listeners who are older than me. Back in the day, there was this idea that we were going to run out of oil. Oil is not a renewable energy. And so nonstop, you heard in the media machine, peak oil, peak oil, peak oil. We're going to hit this point where we don't have enough oil, and then the price of oil is going to skyrocket. So we got to move to renewable energies. We got to get off of our oil consumption because peak oil is coming. Peak oil. And what do you know? Peak oil never happened. Because peak oil doesn't exist. Because as it turns out, oil is a renewable energy because things are always decaying and always turning into oil. Now, the other thing that makes peak oil non-existent is that we're always inventing new ways of drilling and getting to oil that we couldn't get to before. And so the supply of oil in the globe vastly outpaces the demand. Peak oil did not exist. It was just a lie that the media perpetuated for about 2 years. And what I learned from COVID is that just like peak oil, peak stupid does not exist. There is no cap. I just can't be surprised. I can't say I never thought we'd get here, because we're at the point where people are trying to, with a straight face, say, no, I mean, I don't know what a woman is. You don't know what a woman is. You're not a doctor. You're not a biologist. How can you say that we shouldn't all cover our faces in public perpetually on the basis of zero evidence? Like, how can you say that? That the science says so? And now we're here. We are finally reaching some sort of an end to this, some sort of a marker where we can say the last vestige of crazy policies that were being enforced. Finally, a judge has come to her senses and said, no, you can't do that. Are you insane? It took 2 years, and it took a huge toll. I mean, completely destroyed our economy. Completely erased the concept of individual liberty and patient autonomy and the right to have privacy of any kind, medically or otherwise. Oh, no, I'm not wearing a mask because I have a medical condition. Prove it. Well, there's this thing called HIPAA. What? It's mind-boggling to think of the changes that our society underwent over the last 2 years as a direct result of this. And you probably, with some degree of legitimacy, could say you're being a bit calloused to the people who died from COVID. And the reason that I would say there's some degree of legitimacy to that is because there are a whole lot of people who did die, not because of COVID, but because of our response to it. You look at the suicide rates right now, it's COVID. You lock people up for 2 years. You tell them to muzzle their faces for 2 years. You tell them that they can't go to school, can't go to church, can't say hello to their friends, can't eat in a restaurant, cannot have freedom. Simply because the quote experts, Dr. Fauci, the right and honorable, said so. Yeah, there was huge cost in human lives, but the amount that were taken directly by the disease, I think, will probably in the long run pale in comparison to the cost that can be measured in drug overdoses, addiction, suicide, divorce, abuse. Things that happen where you told kids that they would be locked up at home with abusive parents, things where the list goes on and on, all of the attendant circumstances and consequences of removing freedom from a society. And that's what it really boils down to. And here we are, nearing the end, where we actually get to look back. We no longer have to observe and analyze from the midst of it. We can look back and say, what were we thinking? Let us learn from history. We sit on the shoulders of giants, as they say, and this giant called COVID, let's slay it for future generations, and let's not let them make the same mistakes that we did. Oh Lord, I pray that we won't make those same mistakes. Unfortunately, I doubt it. I doubt it. I just don't have enough trust in humanity anymore, which is probably a good thing. Trust in the Lord, not fallible humans, right? Let's move on that cheery note to our final segment, Hymn Hype. Oh, I love that hymn. There's a version that Tim Bouchon, that's the guy who recorded that, Our Mighty Fortress, he does a version of O Come, Come Emmanuel that is just awesome. Wailing guitar solo in the middle of it. It's glorious. Anyway, hymn today that we're hyping is O God, Our Help in Ages Past. I realized that I think from my own recollection that I hadn't had an Isaac Watts hymn on Hymn Hype yet, which is a bit of an oversight considering he wrote like thousands. Many of the well-loved hymns that have endured were written by Isaac Watts. So reading from 101 Hymn Stories by Kenneth Osbeck about O God, Our Help in Ages Past. This hymn, considered to be one of the grandest in the whole realm of English hymnody, is a paraphrase of Psalm 90, a psalm of Moses. It is more than a metrical version of this psalm. It is a grand commentary on the whole subject of time, which is the theme of the psalm. It originally consisted of 9 stanzas. In present usage, however, the hymn is usually limited to stanzas 1, 2, 3, 5, and 9. In 1738, John Wesley, in his hymnal Psalms and Hymns, changed the first line of the text from Our God to O God. The hymn was originally part of the Psalms of David, imitated in the language of the New Testament, published by Isaac Watts in 1719. In this book, he paraphrased in Christian verse the entire Psalter, with the exception of 12 psalms, which he felt were unsuited for Christian usage. This hymn undoubtedly ranks as one of the finest of all Watts' 600 or more hymns. It is the one hymn that is still sung at all festive occasions in England. Isaac Watts was called the father of English hymnody, was born on July 17th, 1674 in Southampton, England. He was the eldest of 9 children. His father was a learned deacon in the dissenting congregational church, and at the time of his son's birth he was in prison for his nonconformist beliefs. As a boy, young Isaac displayed literary genius, writing verses at a very early age. It is said that he had an annoying habit of rhyming even everyday conversation, and that one day when he was scolded by his irritated father for this practice, he cried out, "O Father, do some pity take, and I will no more verses make." One of Watts's early concerns was the low ebb of music in the churches. The singing consisted of ponderous hymn psalms only. His father one day challenged him to write something better for the congregation, a challenge which he accepted. For the next 2 years he wrote a new hymn every Sunday. Because of this bold departure from the traditional psalms, as well as the use of his new hymns of human composure, Watts was generally considered to be a radical churchman in his day. Although Isaac Watts was frail in health during much of his life, he was a scholarly genius in many different fields. His writings include essays, discussions of psychology, 3 volumes of sermons, catechisms, 29 treatises on theology, textbooks on logic, and a variety of other works. All of these works had a powerful influence upon the thinking of the late 17th and early 18th centuries. Isaac Watts died in 1748 at the age of 74. His monument was placed in Westminster Abbey, the highest honor that any Englishman can have. Other hymns by Isaac Watts include I Sing the Mighty Power of God, Jesus Shall Reign, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross, Am I a Soldier of the Cross, and Joy to the World. A great hymn text deserves majestic music, so no one has ever disputed the musical worth of the tune for this hymn, St. Anne, composed by William Croft in 1708. Croft was a well-trained church musician, having earned his doctorate in music at Oxford University. He was known as one of the finest English musicians of his time. He was the organist of the Church of St. Anne in Soho, London, during the reign of Queen Anne. This tune first appeared anonymously in the supplement to the new version of the Psalms, 6th edition in 1708. It was originally intended to be used with a version of Psalm 62. It was not until some time later, when set to Watts's text, that the tune gained recognition. As evidence of the musical worth of this tune, master composers such as George F. Handel and Johann Sebastian Bach have borrowed it for their own works. For example, Handel used the tune in an anthem entitled O Praise the Lord, while Bach made use of it in his great fugue in E-flat major, often called St. Anne's Fugue. O God, our help in ages past. Here are at least the 5 verses that are most commonly sung. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Under the shadow of thy throne still may we dwell secure. Sufficient is thine arm alone, and our defense is sure. Before the hills in order stood, or earth received her frame, from everlasting thou art God, to endless years the same. Time, like an ever-rolling stream, bears all its sons away. They fly forgotten as a dream dies at the opening day. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, be thou our guide while life shall last, and our eternal home. I hope you have a good week. If you wouldn't mind, share the show. Email me. You know the drill. Stephen@reasonedrefrain.com. That's Stephen, Stephen, @reasonedrefrain, ReasonedRefrain.com. Colossians 3:16, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. You'll hear me next time unless Jesus comes back before then. Reasoned Refrain is produced by Stephen Curto. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are my own and should not be taken as reflective of any institution with which I am associated. Theme song written and performed by J.J. Anderson and Stephen Curto, mastered by J.J. Anderson. Reasoned Refrain is the property of Stephen Curto, all rights reserved.